Yeah, I'd just like to welcome everyone to the People Powered Retrofit community share issue launch. Hey. Which has been, yeah, a long time in the making, long time coming. Nika's there, fantastic. And yeah, we're really excited to be putting it out there. Loads of people have been involved with this. It's the culmination of many years of work in some shape or form, and lots of people. What I will say before I even start is there's loads and loads and loads of information that went into this, into the share issue document, into the business plan. The business plan is 80 plus pages long. That's not because we just like being putting information out there. It's really good information. It's useful information, not just for us, but hopefully for other people doing similar stuff as well. So we'll try and cover stuff today. But I know people have questions that we may or may not be able to answer, but loads of information is in there. So yeah, quickly some introductions. My name's Jonathan Atkinson. I'm one of the co-founders at Carbon Co-op and now a co-founder of People Powered Retrofit. I do a lot of work around new project development and business planning and project management. I've got a background in environmental science and climate change campaigning. So yes, that's me. Let's test this to see whether we can get more introductions. Marianne, are you able to speak?
I can speak, but I'm not allowed to start my video, which is
I've made you a co-host now, so you should be able to.
Okay. Yeah, hello. So I'm Marianne. I'm an architect. I work at Urbed, and I've done a lot of work on retrofit over the last decade, and especially worked on the development of People Powered Retrofit for the last 2 and a bit, 3 years at least.
Fantastic. Anika, you're next on my list.
Hi everyone, my name's Anika Kelly. I work at Carbon Co-op and I've been working with Jonathan, Marianne and Marion for the last 2.5 years on People Powered Retrofit, particularly around supply chain development and training. Yeah, and I'm just going to be helping with the technical stuff during the session, answering your questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Fantastic. And Marion?
Hello. Oh, am I allowed video? Hi, yes. I'm Marion. I'm on the People Powered Retrofit management team. So I help with service design and delivery. Often you'll get hold of me. I might come to your house to do an assessment or advise you through the process.
And Nathan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Nathan Brown from Co-op Culture. We are a cooperative and community shares consultancy. We're a cooperative ourselves. And myself and Mark, one of my colleagues, worked closely with the team at Carbon Co-op and Urbed to help them ensure that they had a community share offer which complied with good practice standards. But we won't take the credit for all the hard work because that was clearly from the team at People Powered Retrofit. We were more cheering them on at the sidelines and giving them technical support.
Yes, and it was very much appreciated. Thank you, Nathan. So yeah, the way we're going to work it today is we'll do a presentation, basically go through the outline of the business plan, what we've been doing, a bit about our background, what we're trying to achieve, that sort of thing. As I said, I'm sure we won't answer everyone's questions. So, sorry, I'm sure in that presentation we won't answer everyone's questions. So we're trying to give as much time as possible for people to do questions. What I would say is use the chat, say hello, introduce yourself. We're really interested to hear who you are, where you're from, and I'm sure everyone else is. If you've got a question about the share offer, the People Powered Retrofit, anything, put it in the Q&A. And then when we're done on the presentation, we'll go through the Q&A and try and do as much of that as we can in the time we have available. And that we can't do, we'll answer afterwards as well. Yeah, and obviously this is the start of the share offer process, and there'll be other opportunities to ask questions and engage with us in all sorts of ways. Yeah, okay. Also, I've dropped the link in the chat now, but all the background information, in particular the business plan and the offer document, which has all the pertinent information, is in that link, is via that link, which is on the FX website. So yeah, okay, we'll go through the presentation. Yeah, so what we'd say is, Marianne, Anika, Marion, Nathan, if you've got stuff you want to chip in, just come in and just say stuff. I'll lead it on here. But anyway, so yeah, we are issuing community shares in People Powered Retrofit, which is a new community benefit society. And we're looking to do that to generate income, to generate money, to expand the work that we do. So the money will help us reach more householders, retrofit more households, train more people in green skills, in the skills necessary to do the retrofits, and create new software to help others replicate the stuff that we've been doing. So that's the general kind of what we're trying to do here. There's some specifics here, which I'll come back to at the end of the presentation. We're trying our optimum raise. What we're aiming to do is raise just over £500,000 to do the work we want to do. We can go as high as £750,000, and we'll do more on the service, on the software service side of things if we raise that amount of money. As a minimum, to keep doing what we're doing and to take it a bit further, we're looking for £200,000. The offer opens today and it runs for 3 months until the 30th of November. If you want to invest, and it's an investment, it's not a donation, it's not like a crowdfunder, this is an investment. You are buying an equity share in People Powered Retrofit. The minimum amount to do that is £250. The maximum for an individual is £55,000, which is 10% of that optimum, although organisations can invest more. Interest is payable on that investment of 5%. There are certain provisos around that in terms of profitability and also timing as well. That's all in the offer document. Excitingly, the offer is eligible for social investment tax relief, which I'm hoping Nathan might tell us a bit about towards the end, if that's okay, Nathan. And as I said, all the information there, all the pertinent information is available on the FX website. FX are an intermediary that help organisations such as ourselves to raise capital via community share issues. So they're very skilled in this sort of thing, and they have a platform that's ideally set up for taking money and investment, that sort of thing. Before we go into the specifics, just our vision, really. And I'd say our vision is very much motivated by climate change. It's not the only reason that we're interested in doing retrofit and why we've set up People Powered Retrofit, but it is the key one, I would say. And so our vision is to develop and deliver more domestic energy efficiency retrofit. We'll talk a little bit about what retrofit is in a minute. It's to educate and disseminate effective self-sustaining models for climate action, especially around retrofit. Retrofit is something that we really need to do in the UK to meet our climate targets, and it's something we're not doing enough of. And there aren't enough models out there, and we don't want to keep all our knowledge and expertise to ourselves. We want more people to do this. We're also key advocates for citizen involvement in the energy system. People Powered Retrofit, it's in the name, but it's devising a means where people are involved in the retrofit. It's not something that's done to them. It's not something that people don't get a say in. It puts people front and center, both in terms of how the retrofit is delivered, but also in terms of the organisation. Our members, our investors, and in future times, like members that join, are the ultimate owners of the organisation. It's not only a not-for-profit, it's owned by its members as well and driven by its members as an old-style cooperative. And fourthly, it's around environmental justice. And that's the idea that basically those with more resources hold more responsibility for making the changes that we need to see to tackle climate change. That's one of the aspects of environmental justice. There's another aspect around a just transition, so that people in existing workforces that maybe going to become outmoded as we tackle climate change, that they have a future of well-skilled, well-provisioned, well-paid jobs. So yeah, that's our overall vision. In terms of just the summary of the key strengths, and I'll go into in details kind of what this means. But we're an experienced staff team with a strong track record. You'll see, we've got a lot of skills and expertise. We already have a brand that's out there, People Powered Retrofit. We're already doing stuff. There's already retrofit activity taking place. This is about expanding that, not about starting from zero. we have strong and evidenced householder demand. And if anything, we've got more demand than we can cope with, which is why we're doing a share issue. The business model, the business is a balancing of different income generating services and different clients as well. So it's not all predicated on one kind of assumption, underlying kind of market assumption. There's a bit of a spread there for risk. We're using a novel, innovative deployment of community-based social marketing. So I'll talk a bit about that later. We've got really good institutional support from Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, from Bayes, from the ACB, all sorts of people in the sector. So what is retrofit? Marianne, do you fancy tackling this?
Yeah, I can do. So I guess the fundamental thing is that a lot of the homes that are still going to be here in 2050, or even especially 2030, are already here. And they aren't great. Like, the UK housing stock is some of the oldest and leakiest, least energy efficient in the whole of Europe. So we really need to make some serious upgrades to it. And that's going beyond what a lot of people might have already done to now. So loft top-ups and double glazed windows aren't going to get us as far as we need to go in order to be able to decarbonise our housing stock and support the decarbonisation of the grid. So it means lots of wall and floor and roof insulation done really well, and done to a greater extent than has been done before, plus thinking about air tightness and ventilation and how that all integrates with your heating and hot water systems. I think the really important thing is that all of those things work together as a system. You can't treat them one by one. And that's one of the things that our kind of process, what we've been doing today, tries to tackle, because we're trying to integrate things rather than people getting things done piecemeal and potentially regretting it slightly. But the main thing we should say as well is that we're not builders. So this service that we've developed is not about us coming and doing the kind of construction work. It's about supporting householders through the process, making sure that decisions are kind of no regrets decisions, and that design work is done well, and that there's some independent oversight as well of quality control and finishing on site. So that it's that service.
Sorry, that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, and like, why retrofit? As I said, there are key kind of things around carbon emissions. 20% of our carbon emissions at the moment come in some shape or form from domestic sources. So it's a huge chunk of the carbon emissions we need to cut. And it's one of the areas where, whilst the technologies exist and the processes, as Marianne suggested, this isn't an area where we need to invent lots of new technologies to solve problems. They're not being applied. Really, there's no viable models, especially in the owner-occupier sector, for retrofit. But retrofit can reduce much of this. Deep retrofit in particular, lots of multiple measures can make a big impact. But there's also health impacts. Cold, leaky homes have an impact on people's health. Chronic health conditions, many of them can be linked to the homes that people live in. There's also the idea of reduced bills, obviously, when you retrofit a home, and this plays a role, I'd say, in tackling fuel poverty. But essentially, fuel poverty is a complex issue, so retrofit in and of itself isn't the only way to tackle that. And in some cases, people might spend more on their energy bills who have been in fuel poverty. It's also about new skills and about local economic benefit. There's a huge task here. There's millions of homes. We need to train people to do that work in a quality manner. And as I said, the investment that will be required to do that will really benefit local economies if that can be channeled locally. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about our track record. So People Powered Retrofit in itself is a new organisation, a new community benefit society. It's been established specifically for this purpose. But Carbon Co-op and Urbed, and the track record and the experience and expertise that has gone into it is quite extensive. Carbon Carbon Co-op is a community energy organisation made up of members, people that want to make big savings in their energy emissions, in their carbon emissions, and we act as an intermediary there to provide technical expertise and to become an organisation where like-minded people can share experiences and expertise. Carbon Co-op's in its 10th year in terms of incorporation, and we do a number of different things, energy system innovation things, and citizen-led energy projects as well. So there's all sorts of things. We've got a track record in retrofit, which I'll talk about in a sec. Marianne, do you want to just briefly talk about Urbed?
Yeah, so Urbed have been doing retrofit for over a decade, kind of starting out the main thing being involved in the technology strategy board projects, in which some of the things we did were among the cheapest and the best performing in that program, if a few people remember that. And since then have gone on to work alongside Carbon Co-op, developing tools and design approaches, and also advising housing associations and social landlords on retrofit, and working with community land trusts as well, and other housing co-ops on retrofit. But we're definitely coming at it more as from the technical side of things. So and that includes monitoring and evaluation and handover and explaining some of that technical stuff, which I think is where we kind of bridge between the very, very techie and being able to explain things to people who might be less techie.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, so there's Carbon Co-op and there's Urbed, and People Powered Retrofit combines that technical expertise with that householder engagement and focus on climate change. People Powered Retrofit is in and of itself a separate entity, a separate organisation. There are still links between Carbon Co-op and Urbed there, but also People Powered Retrofit is not something that competes with Carbon Co-op or Urbed. It's focusing on owner occupiers, it's income generating, and yeah, there's a number of ways in which it's separate, and there are some mitigations around conflicts of interest there might be that are in the document you can have a look at there. Some of our background, one of the big things we did was Community Green Deal. This was a collaboration between Urbed and Carbon Co-op. We retrofitted 9 properties to a deep retrofit. As part of a government scheme, we received some funding there, and we were able to offer 0% interest loans to householders. We learned a fantastic amount about retrofit, about delivery to householders, about what householders were looking for, and we learned a lot technically as well, I would say. Don't know whether you want to comment on that at all, Marion.
I suppose just to say that there was a really good case study written up by Kate DeSalenco about it. So if people wanted to know more about it, then that's available and it's a good read.
Yes, that's on the Carbon Co-op website under reports. Yeah. Another key thing, so we've got lots of things we have done, but one we want to highlight was My Home Energy Planner. And because I think this makes the case around an income generating service that there's high demand for. So My Home Energy Planner, now called Home Retrofit Planner, is an assessment service for householders to enable them to understand their current energy usage and create a series of scenarios, which are bundles of energy improvement measures that help set out what people need to reduce their carbon emissions and their energy use. It involves a 2-hour survey and then putting together a report. We've got a software tool that sits behind that, enables us to do that. Over the years, we've done more than 250 of these reports, and they retail starting from around about £500 up to now about £1,000, depending on the complexity and size of the house. So I think this shows both like a track record in income generating and sales, but also the demand for these kind of like deeper retrofit services, as we might say, because often people are a bit skeptical about whether there is a market, but certainly for this there is. And then that brings us to People Powered Retrofit. The pilot has been funded by BEIS, by the government department, and ran from 2019 to 2021. partnership between Carbon Corp and Urbed. And really, I guess the starting point for this was those people who'd had the retrofit surveys done, the assessments done, had got so far with their retrofit journey, understood what they needed to do, but were a bit blocked, and they weren't progressing onwards. People-powered retrofit, there's a number of retrofit supply chain pilots that there's funded, and really to create small markets for retrofit around the UK. There are 5 other pilots, fantastic projects, doing loads of really great work, and we've had quite a collaborative relationship with them, sharing skills and experience. So I would recommend, if you live in other parts of the country and you're interested in retrofitting your home, yeah, this is something to check out as well. But really, people-powered retrofit and the pilot, we're going to talk a little bit about it now, but that's what's brought us to this stage of things. Okay, I think the key place to start, and Kate Selenko, who's one of our board members, highlighted this, is what are the barriers to retrofit, that we've identified, and how do we help people overcome them? So as part of the pilot, we did a lot of research asking householders, how are they blocked? What stages have they got to? Why are they not progressing onwards? Because as I said before, there was no shortage of demand. And what we found talking to householders were they were routinely overwhelmed by the complexity and technical detail of retrofit and what goes into it. They felt there was difficulty in making key decisions, you know, what measures to install, what order to do them in, and linked to that, real concerns about risk and what could go wrong. A lot of the work we're doing, we're telling people, you know, there are risks here, there are risks there, to help people overcome them. But obviously, it's something that puts people off, not surprisingly, really. People often confused and getting conflicting advice from the retrofit practitioners out there, the small number that there are, and having real problems finding contractors that could do high quality works, and kind of concerns that householders had that if they're going to procure £10,000 of external wall insulation, how could they make sure that they were high quality works? So as part of the pilot, we devised a series of services to help people overcome these barriers. And just to summarize what people wanted, really, what people were asking us and saying they wanted: a retrofit advisor offering basic help and signposting, help them just understand whether retrofit's for them; an assessment service with an overview of home measures, as we talked about; a detailed advice design service, so technical specifications and details; access to specialist technical advisors. We've had loads of interest in structural engineers, but also air pressure tests and all sorts of things, damp surveyors as well. Help with the procurement of contractors. As I said, we don't do the contracting ourselves, but people are really interested in being able to find contractors and a service that would help them do that through local supply chain networks. An on-site quality assurance framework, again, as I said, ensuring people have access to that, or have confidence that the measures that they're installing are quality. And really a basic complete retrofit design service, a single point of contact, not having to do all the work themselves, basically. So this was kind of our brief that we received from householders, from what they wanted, and we've tackled it in a number of ways. And this is, yeah, summarizing really the learning from that pilot. I think the thing to emphasize here is there isn't a homogenous householder market out there waiting for retrofit. And this is what people commonly describe as the innovation curve, the Rogers innovation curve. And this describes any new technology that comes out there, from mobile phones to computers, the internet, all this sort of thing, that you tend to see innovators that are first to jump on that, then early adopters, then you get a massive majority, and then some laggards at the end. And this is very much the case with retrofit and other approaches perhaps in the past have tried to do all at once, you know. But we're focusing on the innovators and the early adopters. Well, who are those people? Well, the research that we've done, and this has been echoed by other research in the same sector, shows that those people who are innovators and the first to go, they're motivated in terms of retrofit by carbon emission reductions. They're greenies, you know, they want to tackle climate change and they want to do it in their own home. They also want their home to be warmer. That comes kind of second. A warmer, more comfortable home, definitely. And then thirdly, they want to reduce energy bills. And there are monetary concerns. Clearly, no one's saying that the money isn't an issue or isn't a factor, but it's not the primary factor for these innovators and first to the market. There are also interesting other things in there around making homes more climate resilient, and we're seeing more and more people who kind of expressing an interest in that kind of thing. How can my home be future proofed against high winds or storms and what have you, and flooding? The market research of those innovators and early adopters also shows they do have budgets. They have budgets available for deep retrofit. So this is, in the middle is like 20,000 to 60,000, or in the pilot, the average budget's around £45,000. And what that means is, if you've got that amount of money to invest, that you will be prepared to pay a certain fraction of that for specialist technical advice and a service that helps you do it more smoothly and gives you, a peace of mind. So that's basically part of the rationale for our service and how we pitched it to people in this kind of early adopter innovator. You can also break it down, and we've done a great deal of mapping and persona profiling and looking at the types of people and their motivations, within this group as well. I won't go into that. All that information is available in the business planning and what have you. In terms of reaching those people, again, I think it's something we hear a lot from policymakers. They say, oh, it's quite hard to find these people, it's hard to market them and trying to recruit them. Here, for us, we found a lot of demand, as I've said, and what we use is community-based social marketing, which isn't a kind of back of the bus advertising on the radio, on the telly, mass market. It's in people's communities, it's using trusted institutions, it's running home energy parties, people inviting others into their homes, focused on community champions and people that will advocate for this and put the word out in their homes and communities. And those early adopters that we work with tend to be the people more likely to talk to friends and neighbours about this. So as well as profiling the people that to come into the service and those most likely to, we've also done a great amount of work on service design. So that's creating a viable service that we can deliver to people, an end-to-end service. We've got, again, lots of information on this, but in very broad terms, there are five steps that people go through. Advice, making a plan, getting an assessment, design, and there may be different amounts of design required depending on what people are having done. On-site support, which involves procurement, and handover and retrofit coordination. So a lot of the pilot work we've been doing is streamlining these steps, helping people progress through, capturing data and information, and making sure that it progresses on from each stage. Marion, do you want to say anything on this? Because I know you've been doing a lot of work on the service design and integration. Are you there, Marion?
Oh, yes, sorry. Oh, I am. Hello.
Yes, you are.
Sorry, what would you? I was just reading a Q&A question. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just saying, in terms of the service design and the integration between the steps and making the journey as smooth as possible, that you've been doing quite a lot of work on that. I didn't know whether you wanted to reference that at all.
Yeah, I think we've been trying to make it as smooth as possible for clients. We're definitely learning as we go, and especially as different projects require different support. So very kindly, all of our clients so far have been very patient.
And I know, like, software design and software integration, and especially like the management tools that Lewis has been integrating has been a key part of that.
Oh, absolutely. If there's a tool to save some people some time, we will absolutely look into it and use as many as we can.
Yeah. And obviously I've got on this diagram as well, but this service integrates into local contractor networks, architects and architectural support, the testing and investigation, contractor training and QA framework as well. So yeah, that's basically the service that we deliver. And there are a number of different job roles involved with this. Yeah, when we talk about like supply chain and retrofit delivery, a lot of people just think builders, you know, and obviously builders and trades and contractors are absolutely a part of this, but it's actually quite a wide skill set of people involved. You know, we've got, you know, the retrofit advisor and customer experience people there. Lewis heads that up. Service design that Marion does. Product management in terms of the software and making sure that's developing. Training management for contractors. We work with retrofit surveyors and assessors, the ones highlighted in yellow. And as the business grows, a key way for us to grow is basically taking on more and more surveyors and assessors who do the bulk of the service delivery. We also have architects, engineers and contractors we work with, and a whole network that we're procuring into in the Greater Manchester area. And then we have the management team at the top. You know, Marianne's playing the role of technical lead, I'm doing business development, and we have like a management team there as well. So it's kind of predicated around growth basically as we grow the service and we grow the number of people in it. Okay, our experiences to date. In terms of householders, we've worked with 60 householders and they're in the service at all different stages, from just advice, assessment through to having works done. And I'll come on to it, but these are people that are paying for services all at different stages. So obviously a pilot and the funding has helped us deliver the capacity and develop the capacity, but the householders themselves are paying for these services. So, you know, we have good evidence that these are, you know, wanted, you know, and needed. We've got really good positive feedback on the service. Short Work and Helen Grimshaw, who's part of the Urbed team, have done some fantastic end user research that again's in the business planning document. And I think, yeah, several times, it's really to highlight, several times through the project, through the service development, we've had to pause because we've been overwhelmed by demand. And for us, you know, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's really proves that there is demand there, and that's why we're looking for this investment to expand that capacity that we know there is demand for. In terms of contractor training, we've had 250 contractors through our different training offers during the last 12 months. And we've got structured training and as well as business networking and all sorts of different ways to work with contractors. Over 1,000 attendees to different CPD sessions we've been doing. A new training offer that's being sold to other clients. So we're starting to replicate this in other parts of the UK, as well as in Greater Manchester, more people looking, more providers, more learning providers looking to offer our training, which is fantastic. We don't have to do it all ourselves. And we've been shortlisted for the Ashton Awards, not the Aston Awards, in Green Skills. And we'll find out about that in November. Anika, did you want to add anything on the contractor training side?
Well, only to add that we've also going to provide on-site support for contractors as they go into projects with PPR clients as well. So it's kind of a holistic support of both householder clients and contractors to be able to do really good quality retrofit.
Thank you. And yeah, in terms of software, so the software element of the business plan is basically building out the software we've already got in-house in our service to enable other people to use this. And we've got two main kind of client groups here. One of them is ones we're mostly working with already, and these are other like-minded organisations, sustainability charities or community energy groups in other parts of the UK who are saying, okay, what you're doing is great, we'd like to do that here. And the vision for People Powered Retrofit isn't for us to expand all over the country and expand to be a huge organisation, because there's so much work that's needing doing in the Greater Manchester area already, but to replicate and to share the skills and expertise with other pilots. So making the software available for other people is one key aspect. We're already working with 3 replication pilots on that, and there's a lot of demand from others as well. And the other key audience are retrofit practitioners, professionals, design professionals who are interested in delivering these services for their own clients. Marianne, do you want to mention what that and some of the needs of that client group?
Sorry, you mean for heat pumps?
I meant people for the use of home retrofit planner, people like in the AirCan network and that sort of thing, you know, retrofit designers around the UK.
Oh, sorry, yes. So I was also just answering another question. Trying to get through as many of these as possible.
Oh, good, yeah.
So yeah, what we recognise is that a lot of the work on retrofit is also done alongside home improvements, and a lot of the people doing home improvement work might be working with a kind of sole trader, architect, or surveyor or designer, and that there'd be an opportunity to have a version of home retrofit planner that is accessible to those sole traders, so that they can integrate the use of it with, you know, people planning kitchen extensions or loft conversions of that kind of thing, so that you're not seeing retrofit as a completely separate thing to the stuff that's happening kind of normally all the time. Billions and billions of pounds a year are spent on home improvements, and we kind of need more of it to be done with retrofit in mind.
I'd say software, you know, it's a challenging area, but we do have a product that people are interested in, and potentially there's a huge market there. So it's a real interesting area for development as well. And as referenced there, there's potential there to integrate that tool into other things like heat pump specification, smart meters, all sorts of really interesting areas there as well. Okay, so I want to leave as much time as possible for questions. So I'm going to crack on. So in terms of the business model, you know, there's those 3 areas: household or retrofit delivery, training delivery for commissioners and for contractors, and software development as well. Mainly just focusing on the retrofit side, because this is an area that, you know, training is out there already. You know, I think we're delivering something unique. You know, software design services, other people offer that, but retrofit is the innovative bits, just to focus on that. Because people say, how do you make this pay? Well, as people move through the stages, at the top you can see stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have different people delivering different elements of the service: advisor, surveyor, designer, evaluator. And as people move through, then there's an hours, you know, there's an amount of time they spend with them, and there's a cost of their time. So as they move through that, there's a cost to that service, and the fee that we charge householders is based on that, basically. So as people move along, we're charging. And what I'd say as well to take away from this is that people don't move the whole way through the service and then we charge them, because that would mean that we'd be dependent on them to move through, and there'd be a lot of risks there. At every stage we're charging little bits of money, and that means it breaks down the cost for the householder. They can progress at their own speed. They can even come in and out at different stages as well. They don't necessarily have had to have an assessment that we've done. You know, they could have been working with a architect or what have you. So yeah, our fees are based on the services we're delivering at these different stages. What that looks like. So we've got a pricing model, and we break it down into kind of 3 groups, like what we call standard retrofit, budget of maybe £15,000 for the works, larger one 40,000, a very large 120,000. And the fees there, you can see the scale roughly in line with the amount of work's been done. And you can see there's a percentage fee. So someone who's having a standard one might be paying nearly 20% of their costs, you know, in our fee. But when you get to the very large houses, it's like 10%. So what we believe is, our experience from the pilot today is that these are affordable levels of the market, compare them. What I would say as well is that, as well as, you know, seeing clients in this kind of range of contract value, we've seen people up to 250,000 and even more, you know, but, you know, not many, but there are people with certainly with decent budgets. And in terms of our sales forecast, again, we try to be relatively conservative with this and not go too far too quickly, because in delivering these, we need to scale the organization and staff team as well. So we're looking at, within the first year, 45 to 50 retrofits, moving up to 350, 500 by years 4 and 5. And, you know, for us, that'll be challenging but achievable, I think. In terms of the UK's targets for retrofit, you know, we've got thousands. We need to go, well, millions. So hopefully this can play a contribution, at least in the development of the model. The profit and loss, this is in detail broken down in the business plan, and in the summary is in the share offer document. So I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. What I would say is, obviously the income and the turnover grows every year in the 5 years we're projected. In gross terms, these are income generating services. So, you know, people pay for the work, and we make a profit in gross terms just on the delivery of the services. We have an organizational kind of cost to bear there, and that's essentially what we're building up over time with this investment, the ability to cover those costs and generate income in future years. So in terms of our projections, we're essentially not breaking even until years 3, year 4 of the business plan. So it's a long-term investment that we see, and it's in years 3 and 4 that we're then paying interest, and people can withdraw their investment as well. And yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said on this. So if there are any questions, we can pick those up. Okay, I'm just going to round up next steps so we can get to the questions. We have a great board and a great staff team, which again, all their bios are in the business plan. But essentially, this investment will help us grow this team and grow elements of the income generating services. So that's what it's all about, investing in this to create income to pay back later. And again, yeah, just to highlight what I'd said previously in terms of the key elements of the investment. We're looking for $500,000. That's what that profit and loss is based on. Maximum's $750,000, minimum's 200,000 to enable us to do what we're doing. Minimum shareholding is 250 quid, and we're really open to, you know, the more members we can gain, the better. If people do have the funds to invest, that's fantastic. Interest of 5%, up to 5% in terms of when it's break even. And the offer is eligible for social investment tax relief. Nathan, do you want to briefly talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So social investment tax relief is available to social enterprises in order that they can encourage investment, and then the government provides tax relief. So in order to qualify, you have to be either a community interest company, a charity, or a community benefit society. And People Powered Retrofit is a community benefit society. You have to be carrying out a qualifying trade, which PPR will be. And the investment has to remain within the society for at least 3 years. Now, it has to be said that People Powered Retrofit have applied to HMRC, the lovely tax man, for something called advance assurance, which they have granted, which broadly says that it is very likely that this offer will qualify for social investment tax relief. In other words, if nothing changes from the business plan and offer documentation that was provided to them. What does this mean for you as the investor? This means that you can have your liability for tax reduced by 30% of the value of what you invest. So if, for instance, I was to subscribe to apply for £1,000 worth of shares, then I could claim 30% of that value off of my tax bill in the following year. And you do that via self-assessment. So anybody who's self-employed will be used to putting in self-assessment tax returns. Anybody who's got investments in any other entities will probably be used to self-assessment. But broadly, People Powered Retrofit, once the qualifying trade has been carried out for 4 months, which obviously they're going to start carrying out the trade as soon as the investment is secured. 4 months in, they can put the paperwork into HMRC, who will say, yes, we agree. You know, you've completed the compliance statement to say that you are fitting with the scheme, and then People Powered Retrofit would be able to issue certificates to you as individual investors. You then use the number on the certificate, a copy of the certificate, when you put in your tax return, and your tax bill is reduced by 30% of the amount you invested. There are certain circumstances where you can't receive relief, so it has to be said you have to be an actual person, you have to be a real person, so a company can't get tax relief. You can't be an employee of People Powered Retrofit. So obviously, while it may seem unfair, this is so that people couldn't be up to dodgy scams. So, I mean, I don't want to go into any more detail because
Nathan, it is available for people on PAYE as well as self-employed. I'm right in thinking, aren't I?
Yeah, you can fill in self-assessment if you're on PAYE. You just have to go register for self-assessment. Then you broadly put in the details your employer gave you on your P60. P50. so long since I've looked at one. Yeah. So broadly, it's, you don't get money back. What you get is you get money reduced from your tax liability. And it can be for the year in which you invested, or I believe you can claim it for the previous year as well.
Right.
But that's all in the paperwork that you receive, the certificate you receive, and
there's
guidance on the HMRC website.
And there is a lot of information in the business plan on SITR, and a link to a website as well.
If I could, there's been a couple of questions which I answered.
Go for it.
Which, whilst I just said if you're an employee you can't claim SITR, there's nothing to stop an employee of People Powered Retrofit from investing.
Yes.
So anybody can invest in the People Powered Retrofit offer. It doesn't matter if you've been an employee in the past or currently. It's only when it comes down to claiming the tax relief that employment link matters. Cool. So I think I'll leave it there.
Cool, brilliant. Okay, and that rounds up the presentation. And as I said, all the information's there on that web link. Yes. So questions, I can see lots have been generated. Have Anika, Marianne been, well, it sounds like Marianne as well, you've been checking them.
Yeah, I've been looking at it. There's a couple from Joe Atkinson that are kind of related that I
Go for it.
Quickly answer. So the first one was about whether the service would provide guarantees to recipients of the upgrades to their homes, and another one about how to ensure independence between advisors, assessors, designers. So on the, I suppose the answer to this is really that the way that People Powered Retrofit is structured is a little bit akin to what you would have called a traditional contract. So all of the People Powered Retrofit service, so the advice, the assessments, the designs, all sit on the client side, and we're kind of client advocates in that respect. So installers sit separately, and we basically offer oversight to installers, although I'm actually not a fan of the word installer when it comes to retrofit. I think we're talking about builders and plumbers and roofers and that kind of thing. So it's that traditional contracting arrangement where there's a clear advice and oversight, and then the actual physical work is done separately. What that means for guarantees and kind of warranties and things is that the advice services and design services are all covered by professional indemnity insurance, just as it would be if you went to any other designer or advisor. And then the guarantees and the warranties and things would all come from either the system providers, if it's like external wall insulation, or they would come from, your boiler guarantee, that kind of thing. We'd help organise all that. That would all go into handover information, but we're not the ones providing the warranty or the guarantee on your boiler or your external wall insulation or your heat pump. That comes as it would do normally.
Yeah.
And in terms of independence, I think that's the important independent split, the split between advice and actually carrying out the work, because then we've got no interest in kind of signing off work that isn't as it should be.
Yeah, no links there, yeah. Marianne, did you say you've got a few questions to highlight?
Yes, I have. There's been quite a few questions about geographic reach for the service. So if you could answer that and how we collaborate with other organisations.
Yeah, sure. In terms of delivery and clients, we've worked with, so Greater Manchester is our focus, but we've done a fair few clients that we work with in Cheshire, in North Cheshire. We've also worked with a few people in Liverpool, a few people in Sheffield, a few people in South Lancashire. But we also do work with other organisations. I think the key one we work with really is CAFS, Cumbria Action for Sustainability. As the name suggests, they operate mainly in Cumbria, but also in bits of North Lancashire as well. And part of the software development work that we're doing is replicating our work there. We're also working with a few people in the southwest as well, especially in the Devon area. Yeah, I would leave them to talk about that. And as I said before, we're collaborating with other community energy organisations around the UK. Got a knowledge share project with people in South East London, Selkey, and with Behesco, Brighton Hove Energy Services Company or Cooperative. So yeah, there's lots of ways we're sharing. What I would say is, if you're a householder and you want this service, for example, you live in Newcastle or Durham or you know, bits of Wales or what have you, it may be there's no one there, and part of our mission is to kind of work with other organisations. Doing a lot of work in Glasgow at the moment to help people there develop capacity as well. But the unfortunate reality is there are huge areas of the UK where there isn't coverage by us or by anyone, you know, and you know, that's part of the reason we're trying to tackle this. Yeah. Any other questions, Marion?
Right, we've answered quite a few of them. So been asked about, do we consider to be competition?
What's that say? Sorry.
Are there any organisations we consider to be competition?
I mean, it's a good question. Not directly, because this is such a new kind of audience and a new market. I think at the moment, householders might just go to local contractors and local builders, and we can offer things like training and even services to them to enable them to do what they're doing better. There are also lots of social housing and kind of publicly funded projects that are working in, you know, in a different sector, in a not able to pay sector as well. And there are other people in other parts of the UK, obviously developing different things on potentially on a similar lines, but you know, it's not necessarily competition in Greater Manchester, and there are lots of collaborative relationships we have with other organisations. I don't know, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I suppose I'd just add that our experience at the moment is not that the issue is getting finding people who want these services and people who want these services from us. There's quite a lot to go at, and I think whilst people powered retrofit won't be for everyone, and there might be other people, you know, some people might choose to work with kind of, if they're going down having a full house refurb and having all kinds of other stuff done, they might just work with a passive house architect directly and not kind of come through us. So that there's lots of the market is both vast and there's lots of different niches in it, and I think we've kind of developed a service that fits quite well for those people who want that bit of extra support. And also into, I suppose, the other thing that we're doing that is slightly different, that there are others in other bits of the country trying to do similar things, in that we're offering training as well to contractors, and we've got the kind of software backup. And the big advantage that the kind of software development gives us is that whilst we try to be as tailored for an individual household as we can, we're also getting a lot of efficiencies from kind of doing things in a way that is more replicable as well. So it's a bit different to if you were going to an individual specialist architect or designer to do this work in that respect. Yeah. Marion, you might want to turn your mic off. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Oh, I was just, yeah, I will do. I was just going to say one thing on this, is that I think from what I see, the other people for individual parts of the service, we don't, it's great to take people right from the beginning all the way through to site, but you can come to us with plans already and we can look at them. We can be very flexible about where you join or leave the service.
Cool. I'm minded of time, so there are a couple more questions, 2 or 3 more questions we can address. As I said, we can always, we have everyone's contact details on the call, so we can always issue, you know, answer questions via email and what have you.
I think there's a question there on post-completion performance evaluation that I could answer.
Go for it.
So it's a very basic thing. Those of you who are familiar with PAS 2035, there is a requirement for a bit of evaluation and feedback on that. So we will be doing that. We'll be doing that as a very basic thing that would normally be carried out by the person who worked with that householder all the way through with that surveyor. If things need to escalate from a quality, so that's much more to do with quality control than necessarily Bill's performance stuff. If things need to escalate from that, then there's my colleague Helen Grimshaw, who's a bit more independent. She's not going to be a PPR employee, would step in to provide some oversight. And then alongside that, there are things like Carbon Corp offer a smart meter monitoring service. And part of this is the development work we'll be doing is to link into things like that. And also the home retrofit planner tool that we've talked about already. The purpose of that is not just about assessments, it's about actually we were able to go back into that when the work is done, re-enter any bill information people have, and compare it to what the outcome should have been. So I suppose the answer is yes, we will be doing some performance evaluation. There are obviously limits to what people want to do in respect of that, and we will not be offering a full kind of I've just seen the standard that was published on building performance evaluation. If every single house did everything to that level, it would cost quite a lot of money, and that has to be paid for somehow. So we probably won't end up doing that for everyone, but there will be a kind of scope for doing performance evaluation.
Great. Any other last questions? I've got one thing I wanted to address, and that I think things we've had from other people is the idea that this service is just focusing on early adopters, people with money able to pay, and isn't there a lot of other people out there that aren't able to pay? And what I would say is, I mean, there are people in fuel poverty and social housing and private rental, or people that own their own homes that aren't able to pay for these services. And through Carbon Co-op, through URBED, we're doing lots of work in those different sectors as well. And the information and knowledge and expertise generated in this project, and indeed the services and the training and the software as well, will go into those sectors to help that knowledge and expertise that's required to tackle those people, those homes, those people. What I would say as well is, like, especially things like fuel poverty need a fundamental reorientation of how resources are allocated, you know, taxation and help and what have you as well. And we can advocate for that, but there's a limit to what we can do for that, you know, in terms of the tax systems. That's a very political kind of thing. So it's not that we just want to privilege one demographic, you know. In particular, this is an area that is underserved, and as I said, in terms of environmental justice, those often with more resources have more responsibility for taking action as well. So, you know, hopefully that's part of the rationale. Great. Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to thank everyone on the call who's contributed, who's presented as well. 3 things you can do. One is to go to the FX website, check it out. If you'd like to invest, fantastic. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. But do send it on to other people. Second thing as well, put the word out, social media, and focus on that link as well, because that's the main way that people can get involved. And if you're interested in the service, if you're in our locality, or you're interested in collaborating, info@retrofit.coop is our primary email address, and throw us a line and we'll see what we can do. So thanks very much, and we'll say goodbye.